Welcome to this quick video overview of how to use the 2050 Pathway Calculator for South Africa. This is what you see when you first open the 2050 calculator, a reference case projection of future energy demand and energy supply and total greenhouse gas emissions, based on the latest GDP growth projections from Treasury and no change from business as usual expectations. In other words, an illustrative future pathway without concerted action to address climate change. The green band in the emissions graph shows the PPD range, the peak, plateau and decline that is specified in our National Climate Change Response Policy as the range within which national emissions must fall. To create a lower emissions pathway, you will select settings for each of the 38 levers that simulate interventions to mitigate emissions across the economy, with demand-side options to the left and supply-side options to the right. You are starting in the energy domain, and these levers remain available in the electricity, security, flows, and story domains. Given the multitude of mitigation actions available, about 200 are detailed in the Mitigation Potential Analysis document published in November 2014, most levers represent aggregated interventions, or groups of mitigation opportunities. Most levers have 4 options, with Level 1 being the reference case and Level 4 the most ambitious option to reduce emissions. Pop-up captions summarize the options available per lever. These settings are informed by expert opinion of what is possible, with Level 4 coloured in red to caution that there is some risk regarding the viability of such ambition, particularly if assuming that a high proportion of all interventions could be undertaken at the most ambitious level. More detailed accounts of each lever can be downloaded by clicking on the question mark icons. There is a one-page overview, like this one for nuclear, for each lever. Since energy supply and use account for well over 80% of South Africa's greenhouse gas emissions, the tool is dominated by energy sector interventions. The idea is to keep emissions well within or below the PPD range. Under the Electricity tab, demand and supply are shown, as well as installed generation capacity and power generation emissions. This shows how radical the Lever 4 option is for solar power options, which would decarbonize electricity supply within 2 decades. The Security tab shows the proportion of primary energy that would be imported and the national energy supply mix in 2050. You can see the extent of gas imports changing if we select the domestic gas supply lever, and you can see the supply mix change, for example, if there is no new coal-fired coal-to-liquids fuel production by 2050. The Flow tab provides an overview of the energy system, with primary energy supply to the left broken down by source, feeding into transformation, such as coal to electricity, into transportation, the wires and pipes, and through to end use, which is broken down by sector. Absolute values pop up when the cursor passes over the various descriptors. Note that this block actually double counts electricity exports. Actually, the roughly 3,000 petajoules exported is a subset of the 4,000 and some hundreds of petajoules of total generation in this pathway. The Cost tab provides a big picture comparison of total energy systems costs, with aggregated costs to 2050 under the reference case in the lower chart compared to the costs of the pathway you were developing above. Subtotals are shown for subsectors. There is further analysis of the breakdown of costs under the Sensitivity tab. All of the data is generated by a model constructed in a series of Excel spreadsheets, and this version is available for download here. This is also where all the assumptions and input data and the references for these can be found. The Share tab also provides an easy-to-copy readout of the URL, which can be used by others to recreate your pathway in their browser online, and shortcuts to generate draft email containing the URL. The chosen lever settings are also available in a column from which they can be cut and pasted into the Excel version of the 2050 calculator, as the levers are arranged in the first sheet there labelled Control. Have fun!